we'll just give it to them slowly. How about that? How's everybody doing?
Doing
Hopefully
good.
well. Everybody have a
Yeah.
good Thanksgiving?
Yep.
Yeah, good. Rock and roll. Let's do this then, team. All right. We'll start off by, oops, no, wrong one. It shows what I wanted. All right. Oh, I left my book. How many have you ever heard of this book? It's called The Rider, the Elephant, and the Path, Creating Change.
Nope.
Oh,
Never
sorry,
heard of
that's
it.
what it's called. That is not what it's called. The book is actually called The Switch. Anybody heard of that book, The Switch? I thought I had it in here, but I don't.
Nope.
The Switch, it's about the book is about creating change in your life, period. The book is all about creating change in your life. And it talks about habits, it talks about SMART goals, it talks about so many different things. But the purpose and why this book was written is to make this as easy as possible. And one of the best ways to make this as easy as possible is first you got to understand what exactly you're trying to do, right? Create change in your life. Well, that's very vague. I mean, we have so many different aspects of our life. So to create change in our life, we need to first know exactly what we're trying to change, what we're trying to change in our life. And then we also need to know what and where we're actually trying to go. What change we're trying to create, what outcome we want to create. And I started reading this book because I started doing this thing called the 75 Hard early in October. And I went through it all of November and I found a couple of things out for myself. As one, I'm too old to be doing these fitness challenges. 2 workouts a day kick my butt. And I'm in pretty good shape, let me tell you. But I found out about week 4, like, holy cow, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make them through this whole thing. I did the whole point of the challenge wasn't about the fitness aspect alone at all. Matter of fact, it wasn't about that at all. It was about the reading, and it was about clarity. And so I took it on and I really went after it. And I read, I've read 2 books so far. The first book was called Outwitting the Devil, I strongly suggest you pick up that book if you are looking to find that inner person within yourself, if you're looking to find self-worth, if you're looking to find value within yourself. That book really helps you understand how easy it is to put value on things outside, on possessions, and how easy it is to let your environment influence you, and then how to flip that and allow yourself to be the only source of any type of motivation and any type of discipline. And so Coach Christian put me on to The Switch. And so I picked that book up the very next day I finished Outwitting the Devil. And when I picked it up, I wanted to get 2 things out of the book. Number one is I wanted to find a way to help you guys, all the people that I train, develop better habits and create real long-lasting change within yourself or within your life. Because we all get to a point, well, let me ask you this, like, how many of you actually followed the plans you said you were going to follow, or whatever health and fitness plan you're on last week during the week of Thanksgiving? How many of you guys actually followed it? Right? You set goals, you set, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to be this, I want to be this. And then more than likely, that didn't happen during the Thanksgiving holiday. Right? And it's very easy to allow ourselves justification as to why these things don't happen. But that's what I want to change. I want to change that mindset in terms of allowing yourself the proper, let me rephrase that. What I want to help and why I picked up this book is so I wanted to get you guys all the right tools and clarity in terms of where and what you need to do, where you need to go, what you need to do, and how you need to get there so that you can actually accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish. And on top of that, I also wanted to use this and apply it towards my team. You know, we have now on staff 10 coaches, you know, 12 if you count the Rancho ones. And so with that, there's a lot of different personalities and everybody has different ambitions and different goals. But I have to lead them in terms of this company and get them to what our company goals are, which in turn really just come down to you guys. Our company goals are getting you guys results and providing the best atmosphere and environment for you guys to get those results. And so how do I do this? So I come from a background where leadership style is very hard. It's very rigid, you know, it's blunt, it's sharp, it doesn't care about emotions, it only cares about results, it only cares about change. And you can't apply that to everybody. Not everybody responds to these things. The funny part about all this is at the same time, I'm going through a leadership course in which we're going through John Maxwell's books, and I'm learning how to be able to adjust my form of communication with other people's forms of communication. Have you guys ever taken the DISC test? Anybody know what that is?
Yeah.
John Maxwell's DISC profiles? No? Okay, rocket. So they all, what it does is basically you go through a string of questions, and in these questions, it tells you your personality profile and how you respond to somebody and how you better relate and communicate to different people. So I went through this, and so that was another one of the challenges. There's a lot of different things going on with me right now, but I picked up so much that I wanted to be able to share some of these things with you. And I think that this aspect alone is going to be extremely helpful for you guys. So this is number one in a lot of series that I'm going to do. So I'm going to do multiple sessions here over the next few months. And this is literally number one. Okay. So before we start, does anybody have any questions or any concerns right now?
I have a question.
Go for it.
So the personality test, or that test that you took, is it like where they give you like 4-letter initials and each thing stands for something? Or no?
Yeah.
Something
Yeah,
similar?
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's similar to that, because I actually did something like that at work, but it was more so like kind of like your work style or your, well, for me it was a management style. So it's kind of like how I do things in comparison to how others do things. And then it was like how I should be interacting with others and what I prefer as far as, you know, work ethic and all of that. So it was kind of cool.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
mine, I think it was dominating. I literally think it was just dominating. And
Right.
so it came down to me being very direct, cut to the chase, very like to the point yet, and you know, just a bunch of different traits that I saw, or that definitely reflected me. So yeah, but it also showed me who I struggle communicating with. And it literally it was like, yep, that's 100% true. And I can see it with all the people that I am in constant communication with. I'm like, that's why we struggle to communicate. But I get it. And so I'm applying it to help me get better at these things. So as reading this, it was, you know, this whole book, again, is talking about switch. It's talking about how to create change in your own life or changing the people around you. And so there was 2 brothers who wrote this book, and they went and interviewed and researched a bunch of different people who created change in business, in culture, in sports, in education, and so many different platforms, and they found out how. And so they started looking at these things, okay? So first and foremost, it talks about the self. So in the self, your brain has two parts to it, right? It has the side that is all critical, analytical, and then you have your side that's very emotional. And so, your left and right brain type thing. And as it's going through this, it started to talk about who these two things are. These two personalities, let's call them, within your own self create you, okay? So the writer, this whole thing is the writer, the elephant, and the path, okay? I'm gonna keep referring to these things, the writer, the elephant, and the path. And the writer is your the critical side of your brain. It's the analyzer, it's always thinking about possibilities. Well, what about this? 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 Right? The elephant then is your emotional side. It's that powerful side that's very just feeling driven, wants to do what it wants to do. And as you can see, even by the picture, and I'm sure just by common sense, the writer is nowhere near as strong as the elephant. So just think about that right now. Think about all the days you come home and all the days you're thinking about this. And it doesn't matter what you know in your brain, right? It doesn't matter. Just analytically and rationally, I should cook at home. I should probably not drink that bottle of wine. These things. But the emotional side, the feeling side, what I feel like doing always wins. Literally, probably 99% of the time always wins. Well, there's a simple reason to that, because your emotional side is the elephant. It's that powerful, okay? It literally is that powerful. So how do we get those two to work together? Well, that's the path. That's where the path comes in, all right? So as we're going through this, we'll talk about the writer, the elephant, and the path, and how we're going to help you guys, why is it this way there, get to create some change in your life, okay? So I would love for you guys to take some notes, or again, I am recording this, we'll get it back to you guys specifically, and then that way you guys can review it, or again, it'd be smart of you to take some notes right now so that you can get to look back and start to create just little things, and I'll talk about what those things are, okay? So first, let's talk about the writer, okay? The writer will always be an overanalyzer, every time. The writer will always look at something and pick it apart to the point where it becomes indecisive, to the point where it becomes very hesitant. Think about that. I mean, look at Lead the Way Fitness, right? You guys are all members, and you guys all know, most of you are in a small group. Think about when you sat down with me and I talked to you about the membership in the small group, the commitment to it, and even more so the cost. How many different reasons did you find in your head not to do this, right? You're like just going in circles, rationalizing whether or not this is worth the cost, okay? And so as you're going through it, that's exactly what the writer does. It does it with everything, literally everything in your life. The problem with it, though, is the writer is probably the more human side of you. The writer is the weaker side of you. Again, think of this. I brought up the example. You go through your whole day, okay? The writer has one muscle, and that muscle is decision-making, okay? Now, I'm gonna ask a bunch of questions to you guys, and if I get too personal, you don't want to answer, just say pass, all right? Just plain and simple, I won't pry. Christina, what do you do for a living?
I work at a commercial contractors.
Okay. What do you do for them specifically? Like, what is your job deal with decision-making consistently?
Yes. Processing orders, tracking orders, scheduling deliveries, pickups.
Okay.
um,
Right, so-
process the month-end invoices. So it's a lot of, a bunch of different things.
Right, okay. So you're constantly thinking about these things and making choices on when these things need to be done, how they need to be done, who needs to be doing them, all these different things, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ray, what do you do for a living?
I work for a corporate mortgage company.
Okay, same thing. Do you, are you, so is this what you, so same thing, you're making constant decisions every day, right? Probably big financial decisions.
It's more corporate, so just more like following procedures and enforcing rules and regulations and moving stuff along.
Okay, rock and roll. Sil, I know what you do, but just for the sake of the game,
So I'm a manager with Los Angeles County, and I manage 2 different teams, but the theme of both teams is fraud investigations.
again, Cindy, do you mind telling us what you do for a living?
I'm a full-time student.
Okay, same thing though. Think about that. Like all the things that you need to go through and being taught all the time, and all the decisions, your thought process, right? That thinking muscle is always going. Monica, what do you do for a living?
I'm in charge of the finance for my company.
Okay,
So
charge of finance for the company. Same thing. Danny,
I was a floral designer. I'm trying to recuperate from some disabilities right now. Trying to get
Yeah.
back healthy enough to get back to work.
you help your partner as well, right? With his business and all the things that he's doing.
Oh, not everything. Right now he's had case, he has been immobile, so I've been trying to help with the horses and stuff, whatever I can do.
Okay,
Yeah.
rock and roll. Britton, what do you do for a living?
I am a technical specialist and I edit technical writing procedures.
Now, all these jobs and paths that you guys talk about, just think about all the different decisions and thought processes you have to go through throughout your day. Okay, all of them. And that muscle is worked and worked and worked. And all of you train with us in some different fashion, or just whether it's large group, small group, whatever it might be. But just think of, let's say if I gave you a dumbbell, even a 5-pound dumbbell, okay? And I asked you that from 9 a.m. in the morning until 5 p.m. at night, I want you to do bicep curls with just one 5-pound dumbbell. How tired do you think that bicep would be?
Tossed.
You'd be toast, right? Completely toast.
So, yeah.
So when it comes to decision making, making decisions and with a tired mind is completely crazy. Okay, that's first thing first. So I bring this up because the writer, that's all the writer does. All the writer does is decision making, analyzing. And so if it goes in circles for too long, it gets tired, it quits, and it doesn't want to make a decision. And guess what? Guess who wins? The elephant, right? The elephant's always going to win because the elephant's already stronger than the writer. If the writer just goes ahead and quit, then the elephant's in charge, and the elephant's always going to go to where it feels. Okay. So in this sense, having your writer set up for success is always going to be a key point. I'm gonna bring all this stuff back into you guys in a second, okay? Before I go into certain moves, I want to talk about the elephant itself. So, somebody have a question? No? Okay. All right. The elephant is your emotional side. Like I said, it's your why you do things. More than that, it is the feeling. So you feel a certain way. When there is no logic, you're always going to go to the emotional side of things. You're always going to go to how you feel, what feels best, what feels safe, what brings you joy, what brings you laughter. All those things, you're going to find that good feeling vibe of it, okay? Even deep down inside of you, whatever your why is as to why you do certain things, your goals, why you became the person you are today, why you're in the job you're in today. That there's this very specific reason, whether it's because you got married and you had kids and now you had to raise a family and then you had to provide for them, or whether it's because this is what you wanted to do your entire life and you grew up wanting to be this person. Whatever that why is, it still brings you a feeling. It brings you a sense of accomplishment, sense of gratitude, or sense of safety, right? Safety that you're taking care of your child. Accomplishment that you set a goal as a young, and now you feel fulfilled and you feel confident because you became this person. There's a big emotional attachment to this. Whatever your whys are, it's part of the elephant, okay? And it's big and it's strong, and it can bully the writer. It can bully the writer like crazy, right? So that's why people who, and I'll get to why, people who don't have a clear path or have these tools at bay or at hand will always succumb to how they feel, and they'll do what feels best. And for most of us, we all know, especially being at our age, coming home, what feels best is curling up on a couch with a bottle of wine or a beer and a pizza or something very simple and satisfying, and watching something that has zero mind function in it. I watch Everybody Loves Raymond because I could watch it over and over again and I don't have to think. I just laugh. I know the jokes. I know every joke. I can't even tell you how many times I watched this show, but that's at late at night when I'm done with everything. That's what I put on, so I don't have to think anymore. I just laugh and repeat, and that's it. So this is why we do certain things. Okay. So let's talk about how we get these two beasts to work together. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story. There was a guy who was called to Vietnam. Okay. This is a true story. He was called to Vietnam, and he was called to Vietnam because Vietnam was on the verge of an epidemic of childhood famine. Okay. In the rural villages, they were facing a real epidemic of childhood famine, and they needed help. The country was already poor. The country was already struggling. The country was already had issues of poverty, corruption, all of these things. But they saw this famine was like on the brink, and they're like, we need to do something, or we're about to wipe out generations of our people. And so they reached out to a gentleman who's an American, and he went over. And so many of the people in the government didn't even want him there, simply because he was American. They didn't want to need help from somebody outside of Vietnam. They definitely didn't want an American helping them. They didn't want a lot of these things going on. So, but they had to suck it up. They had to figure it out, because this man was known to be able to solve major issues, especially along these lines. And so the man goes, and so he sees the poverty, he sees the illiteracy, he sees the corruption, he sees all these major cultural and government issues. Now, you would think that especially these four, illiteracy, poverty, corruption, that these are things that would matter-of-factly directly affect famine, right? Hunger, like all of these things. No wonder people are going hungry. Nobody can read or write. Nobody can work. There isn't any money to work. There are no jobs, of course. Now, how do you think that this one man is going to go solve all of Vietnam's country's problems? Do you think he can? Probably not, right? And he can't. Nor can you, nor can I. So what he did was he recognized all these things, and he said, all these things are true, but useless. They're true but useless information. I want you guys to write that down if you have your pen and paper. Just that saying alone, true but useless. Okay? So what he did was he sent his small team, and he said, I want you to go out to all the villages, and I want you to go find the bright spots. What does that mean? I want you to go find any and every village where the kids aren't suffering, where the kids aren't going through stages of famine. Find them, come back and let us know. So the team went out, and sure enough, they found one village where these moms were doing specific things that helped the kids ensure that they weren't being malnourished and that they weren't starving or going through bouts of famine. And so he took all of his team there, and he started to study what these things were doing or what these people were doing. Okay. Now, I'll give you a couple of ideas of what they were doing, but that's not what's important. The theme of what we're talking about is important. Okay. So what they were doing was, instead of eating one big meal, which most villages were doing, they'd get as much food as they can and say, here, eat this, kid. And the kid would try to eat it, but the kid could barely eat it because the kid was already starving and could barely fit that much amount of food in their mouth. So guess what? The rest of the food would go to waste. So they would take that same amount of food and spread it out throughout 4 meals in a day. Now the kid was able to eat 4 meals. It's the same amount, but spread out, and now they're able to get all of the food. So now they were able to absorb all of the nourishment and no food would go to waste. They would do things like eat certain foods that were considered super low class, but they didn't give a crap. They did it anyway because they knew that that's what they had and it was common and they could feed their kids with it and their kids would get protein from it. They did certain, just small little things, small little tweaks like that, okay? Now, when the gentleman who was in charge, he saw this, what he did was he took the moms from the neighboring village and invited them all over. Just the moms, okay? Not the dads, not the tribal elders, none of those people, just the moms, and invited them over and showed them what was being done. Not just showed them, but made them actually do it. Say, you're gonna cook this way, you're gonna pick these fruits, you're gonna pick these or you're going to take that food that nobody wants to eat and you're going to make all these things that they were doing. Now, and the moms, they did not hesitate, okay? They didn't hesitate. They jumped right in because they saw that the kids in that village weren't starving and they wanted their kids to be the same, okay? So that's the why. That's the elephant, right? Now, when I said true but uses information and finding the bright spots. Think of all the things that you guys do as you're going to start something new, okay? Let's go, the easiest example to me is nutrition. That's probably something that everybody here struggles with and has such a hard time in doing. So let's go into nutrition, okay? If I were to tell you, I want you to eat 3 meals a day, 2,000 calories. And I've told many of you guys to do this, and I know all your answers and all your responses. So I'm going to regurgitate them back to you. I can't do that. Okay. Why can't you do that? Because my day starts at this time. I have kids. I have to run around. So you tell me, and then you go on, and then, I'm always moving around for work, or I'm never really at my desk. I'm running around. I don't really get time to eat. By the time I get home, I got to pick up the kids. I got to do this. Like, there's always a million and one reasons why you can't. So the minute I ask you to do something, or anybody asks you to do something, or you yourself ask yourself to do something, you come up with all the reasons why you can't. And that's true but useless information. Because you can't do anything about your kid's school schedule, right? Or when you have to pick them up or when you can't. You can't do anything about maybe you can, but it's very minimal what you can do about what time you're supposed to clock in or be at work, or how many hours you're supposed to put in, or what your responsibilities are at work. Those are things that you just have to do. So that's true but useless information. Why you cannot does not help you. The goal is still there. It still needs to happen. So that's true but useless information. What you need to start to do is look at the bright spots, okay? And how do you do that? So let's talk about nutrition again. So let's talk about the days in which you actually can do it, or the days in the past when you were successful doing something nutrition-wise, okay? So you've gone through different challenges, you've gone through different phases. Most of you, actually everybody on this call, maybe for the exception of Cindy, has been with Lead the Way for some time. This isn't your first rodeo. This isn't the first time we've asked you to do certain things in terms of your nutrition. So what happens on the days that you were successful? Okay, that's what you got to start asking yourself. The times that I was successful, what did I do? How did I get there? What were the things that made me successful? Did I wake up earlier? Did I go to sleep earlier? Did I make my meals the day before so I could go in the next day and not have to worry about it? Did I meal prep breakfast or dinner or lunch? Did I plan on my calendar? Did I set an alarm? Whatever you did, you gotta sit back and look back and analyze all the things you did that made you successful. And those are the bright spots. And then when you get there, then you gotta plan out your next steps. And what are your next steps? A lot more of those steps. So all the things that made you successful, you script out into your week, into your day. You script what we call the critical moves. Those are the moves that are going to get you to where you want to be. Stack by stack, stack by stack, stack by stack. So if you meal prepped and then you went too far and you couldn't sustain meal prepping because it was just a lot, so then you reduced it and you got down to one meal, and that one meal that you prepped was dinner because you knew you were always late and you weren't going to be able to make dinner when you get home. So to ensure that you ate right, you meal prepped your dinner, and now you had, so that's the one you do. So from now on, you meal prep your dinner all the time. Okay. Or you find, or you apply the same thought to where you're struggling. Maybe now it's lunch. Maybe times have changed. Your work schedule has changed. Maybe now it's lunch. Maybe now it's breakfast, whatever it might be. But the habit that got you to be successful, you start to script into your life more, and more and more. And you start to stack. You recreate the bright spots into your life again. And you start to put those things together. That process is called scripting the critical moves. Okay. I'm gonna pause really quick. Any of you have a question? Okay, then let's move forward. I'm gonna ask you guys this. So in scripting your critical moves, all right, let's talk about one of the things that I see as well where people tend to struggle, right? Like I said, we get to that mindset of why, all the reasons why you can't. I started talking in the very beginning about why you allow the elephant, or how the elephant ends up overpowering the writer from an exhausted mind, right? So here's another tool and tidbit to use. If you know you have long days, don't set yourself up to have to make decisions at the end of the day. That is scripting critical moves, because you already know you're going to come home and you're not going to want to make decisions. So make that decision the night before, or the morning before, or the morning of. I'm going to be burnt out by the time I get home today. What can I do to make sure that when I come home, I don't have to do much? Well, maybe it's something like, you know, it's going to be a long day. Maybe it's something like ordering Pollo Loco that night. It's not pizza, it's grilled chicken, and it's a lot leaner, right? Maybe it's something like, maybe your husband makes dinner that night, or your wife, or whoever is the other, your partner, your significant other is. Maybe that's the night you're going to make leftovers, and you know that you got leftovers, you meal prep, so it's just a leftover day. And you give yourself a little bit more time to rest and recuperate, but everybody still eats. There are different ways to win. Maybe it's certain meals. Maybe that's the ones you bought meal prep for, right? Whatever it might be, but you have to start to think in ways of winning. And so those ways of winning are scripting out, finding the ways you won before and just repeating them. Repeating them. Every professional sports player who has ever been successful doesn't do anything new. They do what works over and over and over and over and over again until they get to the point where they don't practice it to get it right. They practice it so they'll never get it wrong. That's how you script a critical move. You find what wins in your life and you do it so much that it's just second nature to you. Okay, and I'm going to talk about what that really is and bring it back to the time when I said outwitting the devil on what that really is in a second. Okay, all right. So that's part one. That's how we help the writer. Okay. But here's how we make sure that the writer doesn't get overpowered by the elephant. Okay. So, like I said, the elephant is your emotional side. The elephant is the most powerful side. And the elephant's always going to want to do what it wants to do. The writer may tug and pull, but the elephant will win eventually. So how do we make sure that the writer doesn't overanalyze and the elephant doesn't overpower? Well, one, like we said, we started by scripting those critical moves, knowing our bright spots, knowing what has worked in the past, what has won, or what other people, even that, what are other people doing to win? And can you apply that into your life? Okay. Now, those two things. Now, here's the other one, though. So now I'm going to tell you another story. Okay. So there was a teacher, right? And so she was in a school district in which they had very low funds, very low monetary support. And so more than that, the test scores, the education level at that school was very low. So the teacher getting there wanted to figure out how to get, and she taught first graders. She wanted to know how to get her first graders to improve overall. So here's what she did. She one year decided that she's going to start to build this idea for the first graders. And so she said, in her mind, she said, I want to get our scores here. So she had a clear path. I want to get my scores here, okay? I want to get all of my kids to pass with flying colors, whatever that number, let's say whatever, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what it said in the book, but the test scores were a very specific standard. She said, I'm going to get them here. And all of my students are going to pass. Now, how do I do that, okay? So the first thing she did is when the kids came in on the first day of school, all these first graders, she went to them and she said, look, guys, we're going to do something really cool this year. This year, I'm going to make you first graders into third graders by the time the school year ends. Now, that to us sounds a little crazy, right? Because you're like, we should skip a whole 2 grades, like a whole grade. Well, here's the deal. Picture yourself in first grade, and if your teacher came up and told you, by the time this year's over, you're going to be a third grader, how happy would you be? How ecstatic, how excited? You'd be like, holy cow, I'm going to be a third grader? I'm going to just skip second grade. This is going to be awesome. I want to do that. So the first thing she did was gave them such an emotional high, an emotional why, an emotional charge that was simple and something that they could see, something that they could relate to, right? See, most of us, when we talk to our elephant, this is what we do, okay? I want to lose weight. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to, I want to be healthy, okay? Now think about all these things I'm telling you, okay? Now, I'm going to ask each one of you to tell me what the definition of healthy is. And I want you guys to pay attention. Monica, what is the definition of healthy?
To be strong and active.
Okay. Britton, what is the definition of healthy?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I was taking a pause.
Go for it.
Balanced and wise in the decisions that you're making physically and mentally.
Okay. Rock and roll. Rick, what's the definition of healthy? I don't know if he hears me. Sil, what's the definition of healthy? Are you guys all frozen?
You're frozen.
Oh,
now you're
sorry. Okay, there we go. Sylvia, what's the definition of healthy? You're muted, Sylvia, by the way. Still muted. Still muted. We'll come back to Sylvia. She has to figure that out. Oh, there she goes. Go for it, Sil.
I'm gonna say not having any health concerns being able to keep up with your day to day. Okay, that's all I guess.
Erica, definition of healthy.
Your body, mind, and spirit are aligned.
Okay. I'm just going to take those examples right now. Who said the exact same thing as the other person? Nobody. Not one of you. Okay. Now, if I came up to you and I said, everybody, you're all going to be third graders, how clear am I in doing this? Versus saying, everybody, you're going to be healthy. If I told everybody here you're going to be healthy, all of you would have a different idea and understanding of what that actually meant. But if I told you guys everybody's going to be a third grader, none of you would ever even doubt what that actually meant. Do you understand? And so this is what I'm talking about when I say taking your elephant to a place where they understand exactly where they're going. I want to be this by the time this is done. Clear as day. Clear as day and simple. Nothing crazy. You can't. So in other words, if I, and this is something that I'm learning even as a coach, it's something I'm going to challenge my team on. If we go to you and say, well, you just got to eat healthy, the fuck does that really mean, right? Like, if how many different, just even what I just told you, you guys, if I asked you all, define to me what eating healthy meant, all of you would actually come up with something very different, right? Maybe some similarities, but you guys were all probably saying, well, you got to eat veggies. Well, that's pretty common, but everybody would say different things. Sylvia, you have a question?
Yeah, so like, for example, right, I want to be stronger, right? Would you say I want to be stronger? Or would you say I want to squat 165?
That's what you say. Exactly. I want to get here. Don't tell your elephant, I want to be stronger. What does that really mean? Stronger mentally, stronger physically, stronger emotionally. How much stronger? Because stronger today to tomorrow. You could lift one weight and be stronger tomorrow because your muscle already built. You see what I'm saying? There's different degrees. But if you said, by the time this is done, I want to be able to squat 165, that is a goal that you could physically get to without a shadow of a doubt. And when you get there, what does that do for your elephant? Now your elephant is like, holy cow, I did this, and guess what your elephant wants to do? Go for more. And so now the rider, and guess what else it does for the rider? It takes away the criticalness. Well, what is that? Like, even when I said, I want to be stronger. Well, what does that mean? How much stronger? What does that mean? Like, stronger compared to who? Stronger compared to what? But if you tell your rider, no, I want to be squatting 165, there's nothing to crit. Like, you actually will. You'd be like, what if I get hurt? Well, what if for this? What if that? But here's the thing. There's a clear path to it. And the rider, you take away all the excuses. You take away the overanalyzing. You take away the belly gazing. That's what you do when you create a path. You look at your bright spots, you focus your bright spots, you stack the bright spots, and then you create a clear path to where you want to get to. Now, here's the other thing though, okay? So I'm going to finish the story. So the teacher, now she had to get the kids to the third grade. So how do you get there? So third grade, now think of this, first grade to third grade. Typically, that's a 3-year process, right? Or 2-year process, long time. Do you think the kids will stay motivated enough to get there all the way through that time frame? So what the teacher did was started to map out exactly where to go. Is that right? Oh, sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Give me a quick second. Started to invite. Here's what he did. She shaped it. She voided it of too many choices, and she was super clear. How did she shape it? She made graduations every month. So they didn't just move from first grade to third grade. Every month they had a graduation ceremony of some sort. Okay, we finished this, we're moving on to the next. We finished this, we're moving on to the next. Okay, she took out all the choices. This is what we're doing. We're going to study this, we're going to study this, we're going to study this, and that's it. And she made it clear to everybody in the room of what was going to happen. This way, there was no doubt. There was no fear. There was nothing. And there was constant reinforcement of not just the goal, but of how you feel in terms of production, in terms of moving forward, progress, right? That's the biggest key, okay? So let me do this really quick. So in talking about all these things, okay, now I'm just going to simplify this in a way that I want you guys all to hear. In order for us to change in our lives, we need to do some very simple things. And the first thing we need to do is cut out all the noise, cut out all the excess. We need to be clear and simple. Clear as day as to our destination, and simple as to how we're going to get there. Okay? We got to stop with generalities. Being healthy, that's an outcome. That's a byproduct of a certain goal. What is that certain goal that's going to get there? Because even in using Sylvia's example, squatting 165 is being stronger, but is it really getting her healthier? Right? So that's one goal that she has in a path to keep going. Do you see what I'm saying? There's certain things there that you keep moving. There is an ultimate goal, and you need to know what that goal is, and it can't be being healthy. Like okay, so for me, why do I continually work out? Because this is my goal. And I did this, and I didn't even know how clear my goal was. My goal was, when I'm 80 years old, I don't want to be walking with a walker. I don't want to be taking medications, and I want to be independent. 3, and they're clear. There's nothing to sit and talk about. I said nothing about being healthy. I said nothing about being strong. I said nothing about I said, this is what I want to do. And so it's easy for me to continually move towards that way because I know what it takes to get there. Do you see what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about in terms of how you develop your habits and stack them. I will look at my life today, and even now when I struggle, I'll look back and I say, well, what did I do last year? Well, one of the times that I'll look at to build on for myself is when I was training for the LA Marathon. I did the LA Marathon in 2019, and I'll look at how I ate, how I lived my life then, what I was doing every day to train, what I was doing every day to recover, what I was doing every day to work. And I implement those tactics today all the time. And I continue to do so. So even when I'm out of shape, it's easy for me to get back in because it's a quick mindset trick. Like, bam, oh, my elephant's going a little crazy. My rider needs to get back under control. I need to clear my path again and make it right back on it. That's it. It's simple. The work at times can suck because you don't always feel like it. But when when that brain is exhausted of making choices, you set yourself up for success. You set yourself up for success because your habits become second nature. Okay. Now here's what I'm talking about. In reading the book I was talking about initially, it's called Outwitting the Devil. It talked about, so in Outwitting the Devil, the book is about a gentleman who interviewed 20,000 successful men and women during the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, before the stock market crash. So he interviewed people like Carnegie, Rockefeller, Ford, Roosevelt, like all these very successful people around the world, right? And so he just took tidbits of how they would think, how they would do things, what they did to become successful. And he wanted to make this manuscript. And then he went through a very, very hard time himself, where he completely went to a deep bout of depression until he snapped out of it and was able to bounce back. And when he did, he found himself being able, with an opportunity to interview the devil, okay? And that's where it gets really intriguing, because the devil talks about certain things in terms of disciplines that stop you from losing yourself. Let's just say it that way, okay? This is not a religious book whatsoever. Now, one of the biggest things the devil talked about was a rhythm, okay? Building a rhythm. It's called hypnotic rhythm. And hypnotic rhythm is, think of like the Pied Piper. You guys remember the Pied Piper, the story of the Pied Piper? He's running down, whistling a tune on his flute, and all the kids would follow him, just hypnotized by the flute, by the rhythm, and they would just do whatever the Pied Piper wanted them to do. Follow him, and then the Pied Piper disappeared with all the kids throughout the town. Well, we do that to ourselves, and this is how we do it. These kids' books really come from places that we don't fully understand. I'm gonna tell you guys right now. So how do we do that ourselves? We create our own rhythm. Our rhythm is habits. It is the habits that we continually stack. So the actions that we take that repeat themselves over and over and over again become habit. And that habit becomes a rhythm. And that rhythm becomes our dance. And that dance becomes hypnotizing. And if we don't snap out of it, we're going to disappear into the night, just like the Pied Piper. Think of a river. A river is a small little drop that continues to flow down as it connects with another drop, and it becomes this massive river. How powerful is that river towards the end of the river that it's almost unstoppable? That's what habits can do to you. That's what a rhythm can do to you. So if you stack continual habits, continual actions to make them habits that are bad for you, you're going to lose yourself within them. But you can also create good ones. And that's where focusing on the bright spots and stacking those bright spots comes into play. Because then you start to stack the good habits. Creating the path clear, concise, and detailed, that's where you get your river to go to where you want it to go. That's where you get your dance to go to where you want it to go. But you have to know the destination. And the destination has to be simple. Simple. By the time I'm 50, I want a 5-bedroom house. By the time I'm this, I want this. By the time I'm here, I'm this. Clear. By the time I'm 42, I want to weigh this much. Now, what are the habits that are going to stack me to get there? Okay? That's how we do this. Because there is a part of you that's very critical and analytical and literally will stare at his belly, avoid confrontation, and just stay in his head the entire time, never wanting to really make a choice, always thinking they're going to make a choice, but they never do. There's a side of you that's powerful and strong that all it wants to do is live in the feelings. And the only way to get these two things to work together and to focus is to be clear, concise, and direct, and take it along its journey in that sense. That's how we create change within our lives. It sounds, honestly, if you think about it, it sounds as simple as day. The hardest part is actually changing the rhythm. It's always going to be the hardest part. It's stacking the habits. It's taking the time. So when I tell you, you got to know your elephant, it can't be because I feel like crap. Do you really? It can't be because I want to be skinny or I want to be healthy. Do you really? What does that really even mean? Your why has to be something powerful, like the moms who wanted their kids to not live in famine, like the teacher who wanted her kids to be as smart and as intelligent, has as many opportunities as the next set of kids. Your why has to be something real. My why, I don't want to live my life like my mom. I don't. All the things that I tell you I don't want, she does. Today I had to go take her to Loma Linda Hospital to get Botox shots because of the stroke she had in January. She gets countless headaches. And just watching her have to go through all the things she has to go through, I don't want that. That's my why. Not only do I not want that, I don't want that for the people that I love. And if there's anybody that I can affect and show them that we don't have to live this way, that's my why. It has zero to do with how I look, zero to do with how I feel, zero to do with my confidence. Has nothing to do with those things. My confidence is already there. It has to do with what I want for myself in my life. That's my why. So you need to come to have that moment of come to Jesus, of come to clarity, and ask yourself, why am I really doing this? Why do I want this? Where am I going? How clear am I going? Like, how clear is the destination to which I'm headed to? Can I really see it? Can I see myself there? Can I see every detail of myself there? And if you can't, then that's what you need to start working on. Questions?
How do I?
Go.
Hi, I don't have my little hand up anyway. I just curious. So like your elephant, is that like you're almost like your motivator, and your path is what you have to clear to as your goals. You have to clear what is standing in your way, correct?
Not necessarily what is standing in your way, because what's standing in your way is going to be indecisiveness and lack of clarity. Your
Okay.
path is where you want to go and how you're going to get there. So it has nothing to do with what's standing in your way, because what's standing in your way is true but useless information.
Okay.
Because those things will
Okay,
always stand in your way. They'll always stand in your way. So your path is a clear visual destination and a way to get there. You
Okay.
script the critical moves to get there.
Thank you.
And remember, the least amount of choices, because your writer feeds off choices. And if you give your writer too many choices, they'll never make a choice. It's A or B, maybe even C. That's it. And move forward every time. More questions. So let me ask you this. And you don't have to answer this, I just want you guys to think about this. If I were to come to you next week and I were to tell you, if I were to ask you, hey, tell me what next month looks like for you, how clear would you be able to tell me that? Okay, that's the type of stuff I want you guys thinking about. Because remember, it's not just about the end of the year. It's not just about the ultimate goal. It's how it's step by step, step by step, step by step. You know, the book talks about so many different things of doing. They talked about this psychologist who went to, I saw Erica, give me one quick second. Talk about a psychologist who wanted to help child abusers, okay? Now, what the psychologist did was there's this form of therapy in which they sit down and they discuss not why the parent does this to the child or even the parent's childhood trauma that got the parent there. They said, hey, on the days that you are your happiest with your kids, the days you don't fight, the days you don't beat your kids, the days you don't abuse your kids, what do you guys do? What is that? What is that? Like, what example? What example am I giving you guys right now? Let me see if I can pick it up. Somebody, anybody. Bright spot. I saw you, Ray. She was looking for the bright spots. She was looking for the bright spots. She's asking the mom, tell me, or the parent, tell me what works. Okay. And so when they found what works, she started to build on those things, build on those things, build on those things. Now, this is what's crazy about that, okay? So build on those things in a way that they made certain therapy rooms for them and the child, and all the things that worked, they made the parent and the child practice those things, mainly the parent, right? They made the parent practice. First supervised for a couple of weeks, then unsupervised, and then really unsupervised. And so this was a study that was done over 3 years, and they took 20 child abusers through this therapy and 20 child abusers through the standard therapy. And the standard therapy was to go to anger management. Okay. When they came back out of the 20 out of the 20 people that did the therapy, 80% of them never abused their child again. Out of the 20 people that did the standard therapy, the anger management, 90% of them re-abused their child multiple times. And so because there was anger management goes back to so many different things. It's like, there's no clarity. There's no problem solving. There's just a finding of why you're like this or why you're like this. But at the end of the day, you even ask, like, think about this. Those of you who have kids, your kids ask you why over and over again. At some point you're like, who gives a shit about why? Why doesn't matter? We got to do this. Like, whys doesn't really solve the problem. Why may give you a reason for the problem, but reasons for problems don't solve the problems. Solving the problem solves the problem. How do we solve the problem? Well, we find what works and we stack, because then we build a rhythm, we build habits, and habits are literally the character of people. Habits are the character of people. There's not lazy people, they're just exhausted people. There's not bad people, there's just people that have no clarity and no understanding of what they're doing. It really comes down to these things, guys. We got to have more clarity, more stacking of good things, and just, again, having more of a deep understanding of what your why really is. That why might be something that's going to make you break down and cry. When I was telling you my why right now, I wanted to cry. That's how emotional I get with it. But I'm telling you, I'm going to hold on to it for the rest of my life. Erica.
I just want to say you have a gift and a calling. You're like so motivational, and I didn't even know I was like logging into. I just wanted to hear what you had to say, and I got a lot out of this discussion, and the things that you shared. But one thing that stood out for me was when you asked, like, what's your next month look like, right? Like, professionally, I can tell you like all the things on my calendar, right? But I can't tell you like when I'm gonna like do things for myself in terms of like prepping my food and like or whatever, right? Like, I could tell you I'm going to the gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but beyond that, like, I don't have anything in my calendar, right? So it's like very simple things, but like that same level of intentionality and that planning, because I think in my head I'm like, well, I'm going to do this and this and this, but I'm not writing it down so that it's becoming a routine, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to make something today. I want to make something healthy to eat today. And then by the end of the day, I'm like exhausted and I'm like, well, what do I have in the fridge, right? And so being able to plan more intentionally was just a good reminder that yes, like we all have our social and professional calendars, but we have to have a calendar to plan out these things, because you're right, it just doesn't happen on its own. And I think like because I want to do these things, like it's going to happen on its own. Like it's good. I'm going to do it, but in reality, like the things that you were sharing, it's like, oh yeah, you're right. So thank you for that.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for the compliment. I will tell you this: if you ask yourself, or if you tell yourself, "Hey, I want to get to New York," okay, and then you just start going, right? There's a million ways to get to New York from California to there. But if you tell yourself, "I'm going to get to New York, and I'm going to get there at this time, at this date, and this is how I'm going to go. This is the flight I'm going to take, or this is the car I'm going to take, or this is the ticket I'm going to buy," like the likelihood of you getting to New York at that specific time, that specific way, is 95%. Saying I want to get to New York next month, yeah, you could want, but that's just hope. And I tell people this all the time because I know how hope is powerful, and I get that. But I'm so sick of hearing hope. I really am. It's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to be negative. Stop hoping, start creating. You create by having a very distinct, intentional plan, like Erica's. I love that word. A very intentional, distinct plan, detailed plan. That's how you create. You create, think of everything that's created. Skyscrapers are created through blueprints. Blueprints are detailed, right? There's planning that goes behind it. Think that way. When you want to get to somewhere, create it. Don't hope for it, create it. That's how you're going to get there. Okay, I've taken a lot of your time. Like I said, this is going to be a series. I'm still not done with the book, so there's more coming your way. And there's something else I want to talk to you about in regards to SMART goals. I'll say that for the next round. SMART goals are good, but SMART goals are void of one very critical part. SMART goals are void of your why. Remember that. SMART goals are good for clarity to get you somewhere, but they're not going to be motivational to get you to really get going and stay motivated behind it. So we'll talk about that the next time we show up, but and I'll give you guys that date soon enough. If you guys have any questions or want to talk to me personally, please don't hesitate to reach out. Facebook, most of you have my number, and I'll definitely make the time for you. Okay. Thank you guys. I very, very much appreciate you guys taking the time and coming to me or and spending with me. It was awesome.
Thank you, Sal. It was
Thank
very
you.
motivational.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Great.
Have a good night,
Already-
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Next month.
Right, see you at the gym.
Thank you.
Yeah, at the gym.